Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. For today's midweek meta deck, we are being the bad guy. We are playing Blue-Black Rescaminator, the oppressive force on the metagame right now that is over 40%. But the reason we're playing it is because MentalMisstep took down the Legacy Showcase Qualifier with this list, so it's about time we play this one. I haven't played it on the channel for a while. This build is slightly different in that it has access to a Griselbrand as one of its Entomb targets, which is a bit unusual, but I think it makes some sense in a world of Eldrazi. Just having a big 7/7 lifelinker is pretty interesting as well. Obviously the Atraxa is another lifelinker, so we're just trying to stack up big lifelink bodies, and sometimes we just want to draw a bunch of cards and say, we can answer whatever you do. So everyone knows Griselbrand is great, and there it is. A few other things that are slightly different in this list. We only have 2 Wastelands, whereas normally you'd see 3 to 4 in the main. So that's kind of an interesting spin on it. We do have all the things you would expect though. So we've got our 8 counter spells, we've got our 8 cantrips, we've got our Psychic Frogs, we've got our Reanimates, Animate Dead to go alongside our Entombs. We've also got the creatures that put themselves in the graveyard in the form of everyone's favourite Grief and Troll of Khazad-dum. And we've got 2 Fatal Pushes in the main deck because this is a card that answers Psychic Frog, so it's kind of important to answer that. And we've got 1 Brazen Borrower. The deck is relatively simple. It's kind of like this potent Reanimator shell where we've got the big scary ones as well as the things that put themselves into the graveyard for free and are just still pretty good to reanimate. We've got counter magic to back it up, and we've got Psychic Frog as our backup threat, which is just phenomenal. And that's pretty much it. There's 2 Undercity Sewers in the mana base, 4 underground seas, and 1 island, 1 swamp. So we do have our basics we can go and fetch. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Sideboard wise, we've got another Wasteland for when we want that. We've got a couple of Dark Betrayals to blow up opposing Psychic Frogs and such. We've got a Shallow Grave to try and play around certain types of graveyard hate where we just want to slam this in and get our Griselbrand going. We've got a couple of Orcish Bowmasters, a fair scam card. Some graveyard hate in the Faerie Macabre. Got a couple of Harbinger of the Seas that we can board in and try and clamp down on all these Cloud Post decks doing stuff. A generic answer in Brazen Borrower. Murderous Cut to kill some more creatures. A Force of Negation when we need a little bit more of that sort of effect. And 2 Consign to Memory, which is very good against Eldrazi because 1 mana we can counter a colourless creature. We can also pay a little bit more and get rid of the triggered abilities when they cast them as well. So yeah, all in all, this is the menace of the format right now, and it's our turn to be the bad guy. It's been a while. We've been beaten up by this a fair few times, so now let's see if we can beat up some other people. Alright, remember to like and subscribe, and let's play MentalMisstep's version of Rescaminator. While we're on the play, we've got some options that we can go for here. I think we'll just keep this one. We're not going to fire off an Entomb until we have the reanimation spell, because our opponent might have reanimation spells and we don't want to get jammed up that way. But we can Brainstorm on turn 1 if we want. That way we can try and get some sort of protection ready for our Psychic Frog, and we can just ride the Psychic Frog to victory potentially. Because of the mana we have available to us right here, I'm just going to play out the Underground Sea, because I'd like to not have to use the Polluted Delta here, because I'd rather save this for shuffling away on a Brainstorm. And what this means is we can cast a Brainstorm response if we need to find something and our opponent tries to put something that's going to just win the game immediately on the stack, like some sort of combo deck. We can fire off the Brainstorm at end step if we want. It does become less useful, but we can cycle in the upkeep. Right, I'm going to go for this Brainstorm at end step and just see if we can push this Psychic Frog advantage. Okay, just put these 2 back and draw one of them again, that's fine. Let's just go and get an Underground Sea here and jam a Psychic Frog. Now our opponent can counterspell this, but if they do, then that frees us up to do Entomb, Animate Dead, and this can draw us some more ways of protecting what we've got going on and all sorts. This card is not really okay. It's very strong. Now our opponent can Source Splash shares it here. There it is. Sure, but that card is pretty strong. So we have a choice now about whether we're doing Entomb shenanigans or we're just going for the... Oh, okay. The fact that we just hit the counter spell means that I think we probably just want to go for it here. So let's just cast the Entomb first and see if the Entomb resolves. The Entomb has resolved. I kind of want to try the Griselbrand. That's like the unusual piece here, and I'm kind of interested to get that going. Especially since we have the Animate Dead, so we've got loads of life to pay here. Let's go for this Griselbrand. We can obviously defend this with this Force of Will. A Daze. That's kind of an annoying one, but I think we are in for trying to make this work here. Do our opponent have a Force of Will to go alongside this, or do we just get our Griselbrand? We get the Griselbrand. Oh, okay, a Stifle on the Animate Dead trigger. That's pretty gross for us. Alright, so we are looking at a Dreadnought deck, which is something we were pretty reasonable against, but white removal can obviously scupper our plan somewhat. A Reanimate. I will Reanimate the Griselbrand. Force of Will, pitching Lorien revealed. Right, I'm going to cycle this for a Surveil land. They can stifle this if they want to. Just get our Undercity Sewers. Get a little bit of selection going. Yes, I'll put it on top of my library. Eventually, we will put a Griselbrand into play, and our opponent will have a bad time. So they could do like end step, Doorkeeper Thrall, untap, Dreadnought or something, and that's pretty strong. On the plus side, if they have a Null Drifter, then our creature will be bigger, and also we have this Animate Dead that we can sacrifice to the trigger. 2 cards in hand over there, and they don't have anything. So one of the reasons why Griselbrand is good here is because the Atraxa won't trigger in the face of a Doorkeeper Thrall, but the Griselbrand will let us draw all the cards we want to draw. So I understand why that tech is in there. Alright, our opponent's had enough. We had 3 attempts to make Griselbrand, and we got there. Alright, so in this matchup, what do we want? Consign to Memory can deal with the Phyrexian Dreadnought, but only while it's on the stack, which isn't ideal. Murderous Cut is just a piece of removal that we probably want because our opponent's got some big scary monsters. Let's move this across here so we can get out nicely. The Brazen Borrower is also basically a removal spell against a lot of things they've got going on. I don't think we want the Shallow Grave here. I don't think we want the Wasteland either. We're probably just looking at fitting in a couple of spells here, which means we're going to be doing a little bit of light trimming. So the Daze gets less good on the play. Oh, sorry, on the draw. So we could trim on some Dazes. We could trim on... I think the Atraxa doesn't feel great here, right? Because if our opponent's got the thing that stops this, then it's just not going to work. Whereas at least the Archon of Cruelty can attack. So I think we'll trim the Atraxa and one of the Dazes. And then we can possibly bring the Daze in if we're on the play for game 3. We'll see how it goes. Alright, this is just a 5/5 off of the Animate Dead here. That's reasonable. We can ponder if that's better. We have a Brazen Borrower to answer the first big monster, which is a good answer for it if they have something like a Dress Down. But if they have a Doorkeeper Thrall, then it just is delaying a turn. Unless we bounce the Doorkeeper Thrall in response to the creature, which is a thing we can sometimes do. So we have a choice here between the Ponder and cycling the Troll of Khazad-dum. Considering what we have available to us here, I think we'll do this now. We'll go and get a basic island to play around our opponent's wastelands. And then we'll cycle this now to get around Daze. Sorry, not Daze. Stifle. Let's just go and get our basic swamp. Set ourselves up with basic lands. And then we have Animate Dead on the Troll next turn, which our opponent might have to interact with. Alternatively, we can ponder and then wait a turn and play around Daze. It depends what our opponent is committing to the board and if we need to up our game or not. Do we have the time to take it slightly slower and play around Daze, or do we need to try and shove into it? Another island. Alright, so we've got time to play around, so we can probably fire off this Ponder. Or we could just jam a Psychic Frog. Do I like that, or would I rather have the Ponder going here? I think I'd rather have the Ponder going, just take it a touch slower, because we're not going to see any big monsters unless our opponent's going to do a Stifle Dreadnought line next turn. Archon of Cruelty. I do not want to draw this. I think this is an any order one. I guess we could draw the Archon of Cruelty and try and discard it to the Psychic Frog, but if we don't get to discard it to the Psychic Frog, then we're kind of in trouble. I think we can just any order and shuffle. I think our hand is good enough. Another one of these. Okay. Let's play out the swamp. So next time we can play the Psychic Frog around the Daze, or we can play the Animate Dead around the Daze. If our opponent's relying on a Tundra, then this little wasteland we have could be quite clutch at taking them off of white sources. A Brainstorm from our opponent. So they could still make a Dreadnought this turn with Stifle. But we can bounce that. Or at least attempt to bounce that. A basic planes. So our wasteland is not going to get any purchase over it. So this looks like a Doorkeeper Thrall end step. That's what our opponent's going for. Okay, let's just play the busted card. Let's grief and see what our opponent's working with. And then we can make perfect decisions. Alright, we could just bounce this back right now. That does play into Daze, unfortunately. We could have played our land out first. That would have made this line slightly better. I'm just trying to work out if we do bounce this back and then get a peek with the grief. Or do we just enjoy the fact that we have a grief and play the Psychic Frog? I think the upside of petty thefting here is too high to pass up. Yeah, we do have the Daze. I thought they might. Right, so we're just going to get this Grief sat in play now. And now they can untap and play some big monster. And that should be big enough to beat a lot of the stuff that we got going on. If it's a Null Drifter, then we might be okay. Oh, just a Teferi. They are gonna bounce our Grief. Do I want to Brainstorm and Animate Dead? I think Brainstorming is probably a good shout, isn't it? Right, we got this Wasteland we don't want anyway. Okay, we can put back the Wasteland here. And I'm not super in love with the Grief. Let's cast an Entomb here. A Force of Will, pitching to Fairy Time Rabbit. Sure, we'll get... I think we just want the Troll. It's big. We can definitely take out their Teferi with it. They can't stifle this turn, which is why it's worth trying to get the Animate Dead in. Whereas if our opponent has open blue mana, we can't be relying on the Animate Dead. Follow up with a Psychic Frog quite soon. A Brainstorm, sure. I suppose we could have brought in the couple of Orcish Bowmasters. It's very good against Teferi, but it just doesn't really kill any of their guys, which is a little bit of a worry. But they do have a bunch of cantrips. I don't think it's required, to be honest. We'll see. A plow on our big boy, sure. Plenty of life to work with. We don't get to reanimate anything just yet, but we can deploy the frog. We could reanimate a Brazen Borrower. That's not the most exciting thing, but it might be worth doing. Let's try the frog out. I think I'll go for a little Brazen Borrower action. Our opponent's got some sort of response here. A Containment Priest. So we can then just fatal push this. We can't fatal push actually because they're Teferi, right? So this just fails. Yeah, that's a little awkward. I think at this stage of the game, I just want to fatal push the Doorkeeper Thrall and stop anything scary coming into play. Because that's how we lose this game. So our opponent just stabs a Dreadnought or a Null Drifter into play. Not a big fan of this pause. Is that a Daze coming our way? Yeah, another reason I don't like Bowmaster in this matchup is our opponent has the Doorkeeper Thralls and the Dress Downs. They're evoking a Null Drifter. So this is just a Divination. And this gives us a very good creature to put Animate Dead onto. If we can get rid of this Containment Priest, that is. Alright, a plus into Teferi. I quite like to draw a blank here this turn weirdly, or something that I don't want to leverage that I'm happy to throw into the frog when we attack the Teferi. Also, this is when it deals damage to a player or a planeswalker, which is kind of nonsense, isn't it? Would you like to block? So we can't Entomb and Animate Dead while the Containment Priest is kicking around, so we want to let them have the chance to block here. Right, they are blocking. I'll get rid of this Entomb because we can already Animate Dead something really cool in the Null Drifter. The problem with animating the Null Drifter here is that our opponent can then bounce it with a Teferi. So I think we hold off for a turn. See what they do with their Teferi. We can always jump our frog and kill the Teferi. Because if they bounce the Null Drifter, then all of a sudden we've given them 2 additional cards. Alright. They're sacrificing their Teferi there. That's fine. Now our opponent's got 3 cards in hand. They've got Hardcast Force of Will available. A land would be reasonable here. Alright, I think we start off with a frog and see what happens. Because this is Force of Willable, for sure. Stifle was entered the exile zone. Our opponent's got 1 card in hand. Do I just want to try and snap this Animate Dead off on a Null Drifter? Or do I want to try and Brainstorm and take things a little slower? There's definitely an argument for both directions. I think I want the Animate Dead. We're going to get Stifled again. We don't get to draw the card because that's a cast trigger, but we do end up with a 4/4 guy that does stuff. Alright, so we got a... Well, it's a 3/4 guy, but it has Annihilator. So every turn this sticks around, we get to do some card advantage here. Our opponent has a Null Drifter. This one's going into the graveyard, though. Not into play. But it does get them 2 cards. And they could have a Stifle for the Evoke trigger. Or they could have a Dress Down or a Doorkeeper Thrall. Alright, it feels like we're getting a Thrall here. There it is. Yep, so now the Null Drifter comes in, which is kind of one of the great things about Null Drifter in the late game. You can draw cards with it and maybe it just pops off anyway. So now if we attack, our creature is smaller. So we need a little bit of help. Brainstorm is pretty good at finding help though. I think the time has probably gone for Force of Will. Keep the Polluted Delta just to shuffle to see more cards with the Ponder. Probably where we're at here. So we can crack this, go get our Undercity Sewers. Get a little bit of Surveil action. Fatal Push is okay. Is it good enough to keep on top though? Like killing the Doorkeeper Thrall is answering part of the problem we have. But it's not really answering enough. It stops them committing more things to the board. I think it's probably just about okay to keep here. Because we can take a few hits from the Null Drifter, or if they want to keep it back on blocks, that's also reasonable for us. Until we can slam one of our big boys. Do I want to keep all of these cards? I do not want to keep all of these cards. Which probably means there's in any order in a shuffle. And then we drew this stinky Force of Will. Alright, there's no point just trading one of our opponent's lands for our Null Drifter. That does not feel like a good use of our resources. Alright, what is our opponent up to? There's a Dreadnought. So yeah, the Fatal Push could have stopped that, but we can still draw a Fatal Push and kill the Dreadnought. But I think our opponent has turned the corner on this one. We'll just get rid of one of our lands. We do get to attack with our Null Drifter now. But our opponent is representing lethal damage next turn. So if we attack with the Null Drifter, we've got to have some more juice to squeeze here. This doesn't do it. Our opponent can definitely turn their guys sideways and win the game. Okay. I don't think I do want the Orcish Bowmasters. Like, they definitely have a use, but it doesn't feel ideal. I think the Daze on the play is probably a little bit more profitable. I don't see much of our opponent's like reanimation-y type stuff, anti-graveyard type stuff. Not really big into these wastelands. I think we'll trim a wasteland for a Daze. Our opponent's shown us a huge selection of basics. Brainstorm does do a lot of things. Fatal Push is pretty useful in this matchup. Alright, I'll keep this. I'm going to lead out on the Polluted Delta this time because we need to play around Stifles now. We know that's the thing, whereas we didn't in game 1. So we can go and get Surveil land, end step, or we can try and do for a bigger Brainstorm. Right, I'm not going to crack this land into our opponent's open Stifle mana. The Brainstorm is also our only blue card. Alright, now we've got another blue card. Place Underground Sea, and then when our opponent gives us an opportunity to Brainstorm and crack our fetch land, then we can do that. There's a Flooded Strand. We're just drawing again. Psychic Frog. Let's cast a Brainstorm. Let's move some cards about. Okay, I like having access to another land if we're about to get stifled. Murderous Cut is pretty good here. Entomb, also pretty good. Psychic Frog, pretty good. Like, all of these cards are pretty good, apart from the Wasteland, really. So we're putting any of these back. What are we putting back? It's probably the Cut, because the Borrower is a blue card for our Force of Will. Right, we'll just pass here. It's a little bit awkward, but we've got to respect the Stifle ourselves and Underground Sea. So we can be greedy here and try and blow out the Doorkeeper Thrall when they play stuff. Phyrexian Dreadnought. Let's go for the push. Which is the slightly greedier side, but the fact that we have the Force of Will to back it up feels alright to me. Here's a Force of Will, that means our opponent doesn't have a Daze, which means I'm more than happy to fire this one off. I'm going to keep the Brazen Borrower in case something does go wrong. Now I could have another Force of Will. Alright, and then the Dreadnought comes in, and they either stifle it here, or they have to sack it. But I think they probably don't Force of Will there if they have a stifle. Alright, that was a pretty good exchange for us. They are extracting our Force of Wills. You're going to look at our hand and probably wish you didn't do that unless you have multiple surgical extractions. Also, you should be doing this in the upkeep unless they're about to play a spell right now. Oh, sorry, in the draw step. They should wait till we draw a card and then try and hit forces. We know our opponent doesn't have a Daze right now, so we don't have to worry about playing around that, because they definitely would have used it in that exchange at some point. Okay, so we're not going to be drawing any more Force of Wills. That's nice. A Grief. I don't think we need to do that just yet. Let's try and cycle this Troll. Get ourselves an Undercity Sewers. A little bit of selection going. An Underground Sea. I would like this Underground... Would I like this Underground Sea? It lets us hard cast the Grief next turn. And it just lets us play the game at a slightly different pace. Or do I need to like rush to do Entomb, Reanimate stuff? I'm gonna... If they're firing off a Surgical like that, it probably means they have another Surgical, right? You wouldn't just fire a Surgical off like that. So I think we probably want to just try and hard cast a Grief next turn. We know our opponent didn't have a Daze unless they've drawn one this turn. And then we can see what's going on over there, because they've got a bunch of spells. This is also a reasonable threat. Alright, so have a Doorkeeper Thrall. Sure. So we don't get to look at their hand. But we do end up with a bigger creature and our opponent's on a lower life total. We can get ready for some Entomb, Animate Dead shenanigans soon. Yep, our opponent's not blocking, so their attacking is correct there. Psychic Frog, that's a pretty good one. Let's just attack with Grief. Just deploy the Frog. Like, what would our opponent have in hand they wouldn't be casting, right? And considering the way they fight off that Surgical Extraction against the graveyard deck when they're not hitting a creature that we can reanimate. Okay, that's gone. It means they must have something like that. It could be like Stifles. It could be more surgical extractions. That's the sort of jam that I'm getting the impression they have. Okay, a containment priest. So it wasn't a surgical. It was a containment priest. It was the piece of gravy they had in hand. So we can bounce this. But if our opponent's got mana, they can flash it in. Right, let's just attack. Like, we don't want to be burning our cards when we have Psychic Frogs to draw to in our deck, because then we can actually convert these into damage. Alright, the frog is in. Is it in? It is in. Okay. So now attacking becomes a risky prospect for our opponent. Another land is probably not what they're looking for. Unless they have, like, Stifle Null Drifter. So if they attack with the Doorkeeper Thrall, we can jump the frog. Well, let's just attack and see what shakes loose. The more cards we have, the better. Right, double blocking the grief here. Let's kill the Containment Priest. And we get to draw a card. It's a Griselbrand. Let's discard a card. Try and get this Griselbrand back. They did have another surgical. Like, we still got the Psychic Frog Supremacy right now. If we don't... Alright, our opponents just had enough. Like, they've seen our hand. They know we've got actual business here. And the Psychic Frog is just too much of a house. So, yeah, we managed to get there. The Stifle deck does have some useful cards in this matchup. Like having the Doorkeeper Thralls, the Dress Downs, the Stifles. They can line up quite nicely. But the problem is they're trying to assemble A plus B. And decks like the one we're playing now has lots of ways of disrupting that. And if you watch my Dreadnought video from the other day, last week I think it was, the one matchup we lost was against the sort of Grixis Delver deck where it had lots of ways of breaking up the A plus B. So that's certainly a thing, but having a deck that can just top deck Azor's Plowshares against big reanimated creatures is always nice though. Alright, let's go to round 2. We've got both our basics, we can do some pondering. Let's see a sign. Psychic Frog is quite the Magic the Gathering card. Cavern of Souls, we're probably on the Eldrazi. Yep, there it is. And one thing to note, Daze not going to be very good against Cavern of Souls here. Psychic Frog, I'm looking forward to playing you on turn 2. Because you can beat up on some Eldrazi's. Okay. I like the grief here. I'll put the fail push on top. I think I'm okay to fire off one grief here, pitching a Psychic Frog to stop our opponent's like really busted turn 2 play. And if we take something good, we can always reanimate ourselves next turn. So next turn, they're looking at playing a Glaring Fleshraker. And they can follow up with a Sowing Mycospawn the turn after. I don't think we mind about the Mycospawn. I think the Fleshraker actually goes worse for us. So we're just going to slow our opponent's roll a little bit here. So we have a Fatal Push. So if we can get Revolt, we can kill a Sowing Mycospawn. It will get to shoot them a land, and eventually this Eye of Ugin can do something, but we do have Wastelands on our own deck. And we're going to be drawing 2 cards a turn soon. Right. We also have the opportunity of griefing and taking our opponent's Mycospawn. They didn't cast the Mycospawn. So the only threat they have in hand, they decided not to cast. Right, so we draw a Fatal Push here. So we probably just grief and take the Mycospawn and cast a Ponder. So we're probably casting the Ponder first. Don't really want another grief. Don't really want this non-basic in the face of their Wasteland. This isn't any order in shuffle. Force of Will might come in useful. Right, so let's just reanimate this grief and take our opponent's remaining threat. Goodbye. And we have this Force of Will that is unlikely to do anything. But we still have it. And then we can follow up with a Psychic Frog and be ahead on board in a pretty reasonable fashion. Kozilek's Command is something that we can counterspell with Force of Will. It is really important to note here. Right, so we'll attack. I don't really want to fire for Brainstorm because if we miss on land, that's kind of awkward. Whereas we can just play this thing that's good and have more cards in hand. So now we have a pretty strong amount of evasive damage. We are likely to be able to outclock a lot of what our opponent does. Ancient Tomb. That's not really what they want. What are we going to draw here? We can fire off a Brainstorm here. The Undercity Sewers isn't great. Let's put these 2 back. For the land. I guess we'll get Surveil here. This will just expose us to the Wasteland. But our opponent probably wants to save up mana for something else. This can go into the graveyard. Go attacks. Let's get rid of this Daze we don't want. Convert it into damage. Alright, we get another card. There's Wasteland. They are firing off rather than trying to spend mana in the Eye of Ugin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they were 1 land away from doing that. It's going to be a line breaker. It is a line breaker, sure. So on our turn, we can just crack our fetch land and fatal push it. Should we note that Revolt is different to Descend? So with Revolt, it needs to be in play and leave. It can't just be a thing that goes to your graveyard. Lots of mechanics are basically the same but slightly different. Just like how half the mechanics of Magic the Gathering are basically just kicker. Okay. And Entomb. I could Brainstorm first since this Force of Will isn't doing anything anyway. It basically is protection for... Oh, okay. Well, that's a plan, isn't it? I was going to say it's basically protection for the Kozilek's command. So if we just put this on top and then this, and then we can Entomb, Reanimate for Archon of Cruelty. That gets us quite low. Is that really where I want to be? Or do I just want to fail push this and then just 2-turn our opponent here? I think just fatal pushing is better. So if we hide this Undercity Sewers, and I'm a little bit skeptical about this Reanimate right now. Like, the Entomb's not doing much for us either, but it is what it is. Let's crack this. Another Undercity Sewers. A little bit of selection. Brazen Borrower. It's fine. It's kind of a removal spell. Let's kill the Line Breaker. Let's attack. And we'll discard this Entomb. This gives us a 2-turn clock. And then we draw the Brazen Borrower. So our opponent has to deal us 9, and only one spell they cast will be uncounterable. And both of our creatures have evasion. Alright, the Wasteland doesn't matter here. You go ahead. We have lethal on board. What's kind of interesting about this current incarnation of Eldrazi decks is things like Flesh Raker and Microspawn aren't very good to reanimate, which used to be a thing that reanimation players would do to Eldrazi players quite often, was just use their like reality smashers and stuff instead of using their own graveyard when the post-board ley lines come in. A Kozilek's command. Well, do you know that thing I said we were playing this whole game around? Well, there it is. Because this only makes creatures uncounterable. So yeah, we were so far ahead, all we had to do was identify the one way we lose and make sure that we played around that. And that's exactly what happened. Alright, our graveyard is not a very useful zone here, truth be told. Like, we have Kozilek's command, we have the ley lines that our opponent's going to be bringing in as well. So let's just stack up all our graveyard-based stuff and then work out what is good here. So Harbinger of the Seas is excellent in this matchup. Consign to Memory is excellent. The Wasteland is pretty good. Dark Betrayal doesn't do very much. Murderous Cut is removal. I will take it. Although, if our opponent's bringing in a load of graveyard hate, how useful is this? This is pretty bad underneath the ley lines, so I'm kind of iffy on this. The Force of Negation is unlikely to hit Kozilek's command, but can hit things like Chalice that our opponent might have early on. We definitely want the Borrower for Chalice reasons. So we're looking at taking out a bunch of this stuff. So I think we get rid of the Big O's and the Reanimates. That's the obvious one. And then we get one more card if we want it in here. So we could take the Murderous Cut. We could take the Murderous Cut is a weird one, right? I think we will take it. And then we have choices. We could board in a couple of Orcish Bowmasters. Oh, I'm kind of on the Force of Negation instead, actually, I think, of the Murderous Cut. So we could board in the Bowmasters, which can try and ping down an It that heralds the end when it attacks. Like, our reanimation spells can feed off of both of our graveyards, so that's fine. I don't like that many of the counter spells here, but they are still kind of essential, and the Wasteland can hopefully push through. I think we're going to go with it like this, which is a very typical matchup of the metagame right now. Eldrazi is one of the few decks that's keeping pace with the Rescaminator decks at the moment. Right, so this hand is pretty exposed to a Wasteland. But we have a Wasteland of our own, which could be really clutch. And it can turn on our Dazes after our opponent plays something like a Cavern. I think on the draw, I'm inclined to keep this one. Like any black card, and then we can do some relatively interesting stuff. Let's see if our opponent begins the leyline in play or not. They do, sure. So now we can happily pitch the Grief, the Animate Dead to the Grief, since it's already a dead card. Our opponent might have kept this hand on the back of the ley line, so it might be a slightly softer hand than normal. I don't think we want to waste down the Unclaimed Territory. I want to save this for things like the Cavern of Souls, because that would just blank 2 of the cards in our hand completely. Harbinger of the Seas. Okay, that's like the best card in this matchup for us. Okay, Underground Sea. We do just fire off this. What have you got? They do have a Wasteland. A Glaring Flesh Raker is a thing they're going to cast next turn. They could cast the Sowing Microspawn next turn, which is more of a problem for us. I think I take the... They do get the Tutor off of this if they play it next turn. I think we'll take the Flesh Raker with the aim of dazing our opponent's play. Because they go Eldrazi Temple, Lotus Petal, play the Myco Spawn. We daze it. They still get a land, but they don't get a creature. And then maybe we can try and strip away things with the Wasteland. They didn't play the Wasteland, which is good news for us. Alright, they drew a line breaker here. They didn't play their Lotus Petal first, which is excellent news for us. Let's cast this Brainstorm. Well, that is a bit of a problem for us, isn't it? We will need some more mana somewhere on the line. Okay. We know all 3 of our opponent's cards in hand here. So this Daze is safe. And then they're playing their post-combat Lotus Petal. Yeah, that sucks for our opponent. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. If we get rid of this, 1, 2, 3 mana. So is it worth Wastelanding, or are we just trying to hold up for our Harbinger of the Seas? I would like the Harbinger of the Seas to do its thing. We can Force of Will here. Right, so there's the Wasteland we knew about. Oh, they want to Wasteland our Wasteland. Okay, I will take out this Eldrazi Temple. Then they will make the same Myco Spawn this turn. But we've kept our blue source, which is the clutch thing here. We need to make a decision about Daze versus... I guess we can see what land they get first. And then we can decide if we're dazing or Force of Willing. An Eldrazi Temple. So our Daze is still... Sorry, if we're going to be pitching the Daze to the Force of Will. Or the Brainstorm to the Force of Will. I think given the situation we're in, we probably just need to say no to this and get rid of the Daze. I don't just want to play a Brainstorm. We do need the mana is the problem. Alright. I'm going to focus on our own game plan a little bit here, since we've done a lot to reduce our opponent's ability to play this game. Alright, a Brazen Borrower. We have the Brainstorm. We can fire it off next turn in search of a land. A Lotus Petal. It's not really what our opponent wants, but they might have another 4-drop. If our opponent has something like a Thought-Knot Seer. Alright, this looks like another Myco Spawn. Yikes. So we're casting this Brainstorm. Like, it's not the worst. This Brazen Borrower feels pretty bad. And I guess we take the Underground Sea. So if we had a Daze in this situation, we could bounce our Underground Sea and be in an okay spot. But that is not the situation we're living in right now. Yep, so they're going to go and get a Wasteland here and take us off our only land. Now, they don't have the biggest of threats. Oh, they've just got a Cavern. Okay, yeah, that's fine. We've expended all of our counter magic here, so... Alright. So we draw the land here. We can cycle this Troll, and then next turn play the Harbinger of the Seas. And shut our opponent down. Right, just a waste. That is a pretty important card for them, considering the play we're about to make. So we're just going to get an Underground Sea here is fine. No, it's not fine. We want to get the Swamp, so we actually have access to black mana, because we're about to make everything islands. A grief. I think we're going to be hardcasting that soon. This will shut off a bunch of our opponent's deck. Now, we do have to wrangle this 3-3, and we do have the waste that can play things like Thought-Knot Seer. But they can't play Kozilek's Command. They can play it at the Herald's the End. They can play Glaring Fleshraker. And Glaring Fleshraker can give them more pieces. Alright, just an Ancient Tomb. So a land here would be pretty good. Black land. Oh, I suppose we don't have access to black land while we're underneath the Harbinger, do we? So I think we are on Brainstorming. What happens if we reanimate an Eldrazi Linebreaker here? We can't ever cast this Grief. We can only pitch cast it. So we don't really want this. Do you want the Troll? If we keep the Troll... I do want this Fatal Push is the thing. Does that mean we're bidding the Ponder? I guess we don't have to cycle the Troll this turn. So... Our opponent will be on a 4-turn clock, because they'll be on a lot lower turn clock. Let's just get this guy back. Target self. Bash for a bunch. We can always hold the Linebreaker back if we need to. Ooh. They're not fancying it. So we're going to draw the Ponder this turn. So we can cycle this Troll of Khazad-dum, which will get us some kind of island. And we can cast this Ponder. Consign to Memory is pretty good here. The Grief is not, though. And this Fatal Push isn't really doing what it needs to do. Daze is unlikely to do anything. I don't think we can keep this selection of 3 cards because one of them is good. So I think this is in any order in the shuffle. Let's keep pondering. No, I think it's in any order in the shuffle again. Daze. Okay, so we go to attacks. Linebreaker gets to pump itself. Now our opponent has to decide between taking 4. Like, they kept their creature back, so surely they're blocking here. No. Alright, they're thinking about it. By holding it back, they do stop themselves taking an additional 2 damage from our Harbinger of the Tides, though. So it's not nothing. Alright, our opponent's had enough. Powerful sideboard cards are powerful. Yep, we are cruising 2-0. Let's go to round 3. Right, so this is not a keeper, so we can send this one back straight away. We need some mana to work with. Island Ponder into Psychic Frog. That is a curve I'm happy with. I think we can probably ditch one of the lands because we've got this Troll, which is basically a land. A Wasteland. Okay, are we up against more Eldrazi's? Possibly. Alright, we've got a creature we can discard to our Psychic Frog. I like the Daze that we have in our hand. Would I like to complement it with a Force of Will? Would I like to complement it with a Fatal Push? Or is this a shuffle to try and find a reanimation spell? I think it's a shuffle to try and find a reanimation spell. Well, would you look at that? We have Psychic Frog into Griselbrand. That's a pretty nice curve. So our opponent is also on the Troll of Khazad-dum plan. So this is likely to be a mirror match. Right, they can't play a frog this turn. There's just going to be an Animate Dead on this guy. So if we Daze and our opponent Dazes back, we are in trouble. But can we afford them to have a 5-5? I don't think we can afford them to have the 5-5. We don't have any clean answers for that right now. Alright, we just got away with it. I'll take that. That might mean they've got another one. Okay, I'll play out this Polluted Delta so we can go Entomb and then Animate Dead on our turn. That's our answer to a big scary troll, if they put one in. There's a Wasteland. Animate Dead. Sure. We're not interacting with that. Let's crack this, go and get ourselves a basic swamp. It's so nice that this deck gets to run on basics as well. It's kind of gross, to be honest. Let's go for an Entomb. Do you have an answer to this one, opponent? It's a weird choice whether or not you counterspell the Entomb, because they're going to have some reanimation spells in their deck too. So if they let us get the big monster and then get the next thing out, then they might be alright. Archon of Cruelty, I think, is where I want to be here. I would love to draw a Force of Will or a Daze. No, Force of Will would be better, wouldn't it? Alright, let's try and get this Archon of Cruelty. We could play slightly slower, but the problem is we're getting beaten down by a lot. Alright, so they have a Force of Will, yeah. So it wasn't the Daze we got beaten by. So I think it was right that we didn't play around Daze, given the pressure we're under. Okay, so we need to draw another reanimation spell or have our opponent not draw a reanimation spell. That would be very bad for us. So we take 5 this turn, and then we deploy like the frog. We might be able to wasteland our opponent, but it's not going to be the most effective because they've just been cycling trolls. Okay, is this just a reanimation on our guy? It is. Yeah, I don't want to play that game anymore. Okay, so what do we want here? Like, the Entomb plan is very bad when our opponent has a bunch of stuff too. The Faerie Macabre is probably something that we want to have access to. I think the Shallow Grave is probably partly for this sort of matchup. The Dark Betrayals are excellent here. Bowmasters are fine. Like, Counter Magic is so bad here as well. Do you even want to Wasteland? I guess having more lands isn't the worst. Maybe Murderous Cut is fine here too. So if we board out like this, that leaves us looking for one more thing. And cut one more thing. I don't really want to be wastelanding our opponent in this matchup. But I also don't want to be wastelanded either. So having more lands can help with that. Maybe we don't need the Shallow Grave, since we're boarding out our big O's anyway. What I think we probably want the other Borrower. It means we're probably trimming a Force, because they're not great in the whole scam matchup. But our opponent did win the die roll. And I think that is quite relevant in how this match plays up sometimes. Like, they just had more stuff than us, right? They had triple reanimation spells. And they had the counter at the right time. Okay, we can play on basics. Seems fine. We could always just get an Undercity Sewers as well. That's the way we want to play this one. We'll see what our opponent does, though, and we can make some decisions. If they just have the Grief Scam hand, then we probably lose. We want to play the Psychic Frog next turn. So we want to see a Ponder or something from our opponent here. Alright, we are just getting scammed. Let's see if they stack the triggers correctly. They have. Okay. So we have no recourse to this. But they're not reanimating it this turn. Unless they're playing the Lotus Petal build. But they correctly stacked it anyway, so we're not going to be able to use our Faerie Macabre if that's what they want to target here. I doubt it is what they want to target. They probably want to take the Frog. Because that is the most powerful card in our hand by a reasonable margin. But if they've got like a clean answer to it, then they're not really going to care. Yeah, they took the frog. It's the best card in our hand. Now we're going to see a Ponder? No. I think I am just going to get an Undercity Sewers. We need the card selection, and we rather than worrying about Wasteland. So our opponent playing a Stifle build. I thought they were for a second then. Not that that's a huge problem. It's certainly annoying though. They definitely want to get this Brainstorm out before we have access to any sort of Bowmaster shenanigans. Now we go back to the old times of who Bowmasters first and who gets to clean up the opponent's Bowmasters. Right, Undercity Sewers. Let's get one of you. Let's have a little look at the top of our deck. Dark Betrayal. That is a very good card in this matchup. I will leave that on top. So we can go for the preemptive Bowmasters, or we can just hold it up. I don't really like just running it out when our opponent's probably got their own Bowmasters. We want to play the second Bowmasters. Okay. Opponent has a Wasteland. So we could play the Bowmasters out here. And if our opponent interacts, we can Daze and bounce our thing. So this seems like a reasonable spot for this. Right, they're just swamp cycling the Troll. Because if we could Daze and bounce the Undercity Sewers, that'd be right. I don't think we need to because we have the other land here. But we had an opportunity to get some extra value out of what our opponent's doing. And if we whittle away our opponent's life total, their Reanimates become worse. Although we already have the answer to their first creature. Fatal Push. Right, let's cycle this Troll. I think I just want another Underground Sea here. Play this one out so we can hold up the push or the betrayal. Our opponent is likely to have played this mirror match more than me, because I've not played a lot of the Rescaminator deck. If our opponent has a second Wasteland, then we're going to start getting a little bit punished for not getting the basics we could have. But I think it was still the correct choice at the time. Unlicensed Hearse. I don't care about Unlicensed Hearse. Now, if it gets big, it will always get fatal pushed. I'm not going to discard a Faerie Macabre to make it not take as many cards out. What this does do is it makes it more difficult for us to get evasion on our Psychic Frog. Again, we are the one that's actually pressuring our opponent's life total right now. And we've got a reasonable suite of things to keep that going, but 2 damage a turn is not the most, so we will need to try and up this at some point. But we have a Force or a Daze, and we have 2 good removal spells. A Reanimate targeting the Grief. Seems like a sensible time to get rid of... Would I rather get rid of our Psychic Frog so they can't reanimate that? Would I rather get rid of the Troll that they have over there? Like, there's 2 Trolls in there, so it's not really great. Let's get rid of our Psychic Frog. Now, we do have removal, so it's not the end of the world if they get one of these. Like if they get the Troll, but we can't stop them getting a Troll. I guess we have the option of just letting them have the Troll and then killing it. But I'd rather save these removal spells something like a Psychic Frog or whatever. Just playing a tempo game. Just keep going and worry about the things that we can worry about. Because obviously, Faerie Macabre is a very inflexible tool. Whereas all the other tools in our hand have a lot more flexibility in how we can use them. So getting a good exchange with the Faerie Macabre there is fine. What are we going to see right now? Shoulder's Edict. Sacrificing a non-token creature. So we're floating the 1 to pay for multiple Dazes. So our Force of Will is off now. But if our opponent really wants his Bowmasters gone, then I really want it in play. That means our opponent has some sort of cantrip. And now they might be forced into just firing it off. Because otherwise they're not going anywhere. We have 2 answers for the Unlicensed Hearse as well now. Which can also answer the Psychic Frog. Would have rather drawn a blue card that turn, but it is what it is. Yep, you can keep eating some cards like Graveyard. I don't mind. That's just less creatures for our opponent to reanimate. What are we going to see here? Are they drawing their own Bowmasters? Or is this just a frog? An Animate Dead on a Troll of Khazad-dum. Sure. You can have a Troll. We will Dark Betrayal this. Around a Daze. We do it now so they can't activate their Hearse. And block. Because we may not want to use our Fatal Pushes if we don't have to. Ooh, a Force of Will. I pitched an Atraxa. Okay, I had the wrong read. That Shoulder's Edict was not really a thing that they needed. Intriguing. Okay. I guess we're not attacking here, so... Things have taken a little bit of a turn. So we ping our opponent down to 11. And then we have 4 power on board. So that is not a quick enough clock. If our opponent has, like, anything, right? And they can hold back the Troll whenever they need to. But I imagine they're just going to start crashing here. Yep, there it is. That's 5. And we get to attack our opponent down to 7, if I can do maths. Let's see if I can do maths. We do have 3 creatures to block the Troll, but I don't think that's how I want to try and play this game. Right, there's the blue card that we wanted earlier. So this means that our opponent has to have something and get it going through. But again, they can just stop attacking at some point and just hold back on blocks. Which kind of favours us in some ways because we have more cards in hand. So they attack here, it's very risky because we could have like another Bowmasters or something. And Entomb. Is this where we fight? I don't think it is. I think we let this go. And then we try and counter the thing that... If they have a reanimation spell, we then do that. And then we can try and pressure it with our own stuff. Okay, so we can just Daze this because our opponent has no mana available. Nice little turn 7 Daze being effective. So this means if we draw a reanimation spell, we can force the tap on the hearse and get rid of it. And if we draw a blue spell, we can force a will another reanimation spell. Oh, they're crewing the hearse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is an 8. Yeah, that's a pretty good line around our fatal push there. Found a nice line. An Animate Dead. Well, well, well. It's our time to shine. Alright, our opponent's skipping up. Okay. Do I want to do anything differently on the draw as opposed to on the play? Dazes get worse, which is certainly a thing. But I don't think we have tools I would prefer. We can board in another Wasteland, so we have more things to play around our opponent's Daze, which I think is probably reasonable. Although our opponent just let us get so many free Dazes that game. Maybe we are supposed to just keep the Dazes in. The way our opponent was playing into them. Or maybe that actually that's supposed to be a force and we trim a Daze. Good card in the matchup. Good card in the matchup. Good card in the matchup. Good card. Reasonable card in the matchup. Good card in the matchup. Like, this is fine. We will need some more land. But we can just fetch a basic swamp to begin with if we need to. Screw beats flood is always the rule too. We have lots of spells. We are a little bit cold to like graveyard stuff, but our opponents shouldn't really be too high on the graveyard stuff right now. Now, they had a lot more of it in than I was expecting in game 2. But I don't know if that was because they're on the play. But as you can see, the Entombs are a real risk and basically won that game for us, our opponent's Entomb. Alright, a Brazen Borrower. Let's just play out our lowly little Polluted Delta. We might have to get an Undercity Sewers to try and surveil to second land. We'll see what our opponent's up to. Basic Island. Swamp Cycling. Good old-fashioned swamp cycling. I don't really want to fetch a black source. That's just a black source, like our swamp. Because that makes it really hard to cast any of our cantrips. But if we don't, that's also not great for us. A Psychic Frog. Okay. Are we trying to play around Daze here? We don't have another land, so that feels like a risky proposition. I think we just fetch. I think it might have to be a swamp here. We'll try and push this. Okay, it just worked. A Grief. Okay, I like this. I will exile this blue card we can't cast. Is that right? I think it probably is. And then we can reanimate either their troll. Okay, so they've got Entomb, reanimate, Psychic Frog. I'm also glad that we fetched the basic there with the Wasteland. So we could take the reanimate and just hope that they never come to anything with this Entomb. Or we could take... I guess we could just take both, right? We could just reanimate our Grief here. Live the dream. Like a good little scammer. And then we have the removal spell for the frog. So they will probably play a Polluted Delta to get a Surveil land and just play the Psychic Frog. Or they might play the Psychic Frog and just keep all the cards in hand and just try and make a large frog and race us. There's the frog. Interesting they didn't play a land first. They might be just keeping the lands in hand as a thing. Okay. I think if you're playing the land out, you want to play it first just in case something weird happens. I guess we're not showing Daze because of our mana. Alright. I will Dark Betrayal this creature. If this doesn't work, we can Murderous Cut it as well. And now we have access to our basic island and we get to play the game. It's a spooky time when Dark Betrayal is a good card. So our opponent is going to go and get a Surveil land in our end step. They did not get a Surveil land in our end step. That's very surprising to me. And there's the Wasteland, which means we can't get a Surveil land. I will play this one out. We can just add the Brazen Borrower as a clock and just try and get this game over and done with while our opponent is working with very little resources. But we can also hold up the Bowmaster in case our opponent goes for anything. Are they going for the Surveil land now? Yeah, why didn't they do that last turn? Curious. I guess we don't know what's in their hand. But, alright, they left a card on top. That's a little spooky. A Ponder. Who am I to pass up the free value here? Who am I indeed? So when Scam originally came around, it was like a really good answer to the reanimated decks that were in the format. So boarding into more of a Scam stuff in the mirror like this feels pretty solid. Whereas our opponent's got a lot more of the Entomb stuff going on. Whereas we've gone for like more interaction, and they did broad in the Hearse though. I'm not going to get Surveil Land at our end step with our Polluted Delta because it can get Wastelanded and take us off of the Hardcast Borrower, which might be enough to shorten the clock. Turn down the line. They did not shuffle off their Ponder, but this will put our opponent to 10 life. So Reanimate becomes a risky proposition. They got their own Bowmasters here. They do have their own Bowmasters. Sure, they can ping down our Bowmasters. And we ping them and grow our Orc army. We're not cracking this end step because all the lands we can get are Wastelandable. So we're only going to crack this when we want the mana out of it. Am I interested in Undercity Sewers? I think I am. Ponder, that is a good find. But we kind of want this Brazen Borrower at the same time. Right, let's attack and see what we're working with. We're probably going to go for the block here. They are. Try and bounce the Orc army token. So we kill their guy, we don't lose anything, we pressure our opponent down for some more damage. We're still holding on to this Murderous Cut, and if we don't have to crack our fetch land, we get this Ponder. Lovely, lovely Ponder. Our opponent could hit our fetch land to sort of incentivize us to shuffle away the card on the top. It's an interesting line. I don't think it'd be right, but it's certainly a thing they could do. And using the Borrower there, I think, is fine because we have the cut as well. We just want to keep the pressure up. Reanimate is becoming increasingly bad for our opponent to draw, whereas our Reanimates are pretty good. A lot of options. Right, this looks like an Animate Dead on the Psychic Frog. It's a 0/2. So they have to sack both of their cards in hand to make the Psychic Frog survive in a block, which means our Murderous Cut will not be countered. I think our opponent's thinking about this Wasteland. They can take us off Hardcast Grief. There is the Ponder. I think we are just attacking in here. See what our opponent wants to do. Okay. I'm happy for you to lose your Psychic Frog. Alright. Are they just going to bounce off each other? Or are you going to try and kill my guy? They're just going to bounce. Let's go for a Ponder. I will take this Animate Dead. And I would very much like your Atraxa. Right, they're just going to exile it with the Psychic Frog, sure. That's fine by me. This means that they can't reanimate it with their draw step, which is something that would pull them ahead. And we are very far ahead in this game, especially as they're about to kill this Psychic Frog. I don't think they can attack here. We have a Fatal Push on top as well. What is this going to be? We can Animate Dead on a Troll. It's fine. Like, we keep the Murderous Cut to see what they play. Oh, each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Well, we only have one non-token creature, and it's the Grief. So we can let our opponent get a card here, or we can just kill this. If we kill this, we lose the Fatal Pushes on top of our library. How important is it for our opponent to not get another card here? I think the answer is quite important. If we get Daze here, that's going to be disheartening. Maybe we should have let them have the one card. Oh, they're just going to Petty Theft our guy. Okay, so we're going to leave it down to dueling borrowers. But we get the first draw, so we're slightly ahead. Faerie Macabre is interesting. Okay, we'll just play this borrower in our opponent's turn. We'll keep the Macabre because it does stop some of the scary things that can happen. Maybe we were too defensive with our Animate Dead and we should have reanimated one of our creatures instead of just trying to make sure they don't get any Atraxa. But it felt like we were quite far ahead and I didn't want to just lose to an Atraxa. Let's get our Borrower in. They're going to play their Borrower and we can duel. So if we draw a reanimation spell, we can just get back our Bowmasters and start and ping this away, and then the game is looking pretty good for us. Alright, a Ponder is an excellent find. Come on, deck. What have you got? None of those cards are what we want. So let's go any order and shuffle. Another Faerie Macabre. That is also not what we want. Would I want to trade this for our opponent's creature? I don't think I do. So we can play a Faerie Macabre next turn. Yeah, maybe we should have just reanimated our own thing and just tried to dodge our opponent drawing any reanimation spells. Psychic Frog, that is very strong. Our opponent probably attacks here. So they can jump their frog to block. Or they can just take the 3. So if they jump their frog, they can make this a 2/3, but it'll still trade with the Borrower. And then we play a Faerie Macabre. And then we have 5 power in the air. I think if we didn't try and Animate Dead their Atraxa earlier, they immediately would have drawn a reanimation spell and lost us the game. I don't know. That's just how Magic works sometimes. I have played this matchup quite defensively in general, I think, and it's been alright so far. The frog is definitely coming. Oh, the frog didn't come in. I thought they would come in with the frog and try and draw something. A Brainstorm. That does a lot here. So they can jump this in a way that can trade with this. I don't really want that. Do I want this Faerie Macabre in play? Would I like this Brainstorm? If I Brainstorm and they have an Orcish Bowmasters, that's really bad for us. If I just cast this Faerie Macabre, we can sit on this Force of Will, and then we have a lethal attack next turn. I don't think we have to attack here. Alright, we've put our opponent in check. One of them, they're Entombs, is it? Okay. We don't know if this is a thing that's actually doing anything for our opponent. It could be just trying to fish out some interaction of ours. Archon of Cruelty in there. And we can always counter the reanimation spell. Okay, we have a lethal attack here with a Force of Will backup. Alright, we won the match. Yeah, I think you could definitely look at that Animate Dead on that Atraxa line many times over and decide whether or not it was the right thing to do. Like, the big upside on it is if our opponent doesn't remember they have a Psychic Frog, we just get an Atraxa and win the game. The downside on it is we spend a card to not really do anything but make our opponent's top decks worse. Whereas if we reanimate one of our own things, we maybe get to win this game a bit earlier. So, I don't know. I don't know about that one. We're 3-0 though, so let's go to round 4. Alright, our opener for round 4. I'm not big into this one. It kind of feels like a mulligan already due to this Archon. It's just kind of all mana, so I think we can do something a bit more impressive. Well, that's impressive. I'll keep that. I think we probably can get away with bottoming this and just playing on basics. And we're just going to be the bad guy. Let's do some scamming. This is where our opponent griefs us and then takes our Atraxa. But I would quite like to put the Atraxa into the grief as our pitch. Eldritch Temple, okay, we don't have to worry about that. Hit the Herald's the End, not the most threatening of creatures. But it obviously stacks up and has some spooky friends. Alright, let's grief, pitch in the Atraxa. Let's see what you're working with over there, opponent. An Eldrazi Linebreaker, that is pretty good. But we can just take both of our opponent's threats, and that's reasonable here too. Costs us a bit of life. I can live with that. And then we can get back the Linebreaker next turn if we want to. Alright, enjoy your hand with nothing in. This is where they immediately top deck, like Glaring Fleshraker. Start going wild. Oh, they drew another Linebreaker, yikes. Yeah, that's pretty good. 6-4 you say. So probably attack with just the Linebreaker here. Trade this for the Herald's End. I think we are in some trouble. There's no point just soaking up the damage here. It's got Trample, so it's just... We take 3 and lose our guy. That's just not worth it. Does put us to 9, which is not the largest of numbers. Psychic Frog. Play Psychic Frog. We can make it a 3-4. Or we could just get an Eldrazi Linebreaker. Alright, I know what I'm signing up for. Is that true? Do we need to aim bigger and try and Brainstorm into a big threat? Because if we find like Archon of Cruelty, we can then Psychic Frog it. But whatever creature they draw next turn will have haste. Do I think getting back a 3-3? We can put both under the bus here and trade. But this, we'll lose both of our creatures and they'll be left with a 2-2. Which is something we can beat. But then anything our opponent draws is like super sketchy for us. I think we just take the Linebreaker here. I will... Oh, and this is only a 2-3, isn't it? We still double trade up. But we can't attack here. So we trade 2 creatures up for their 1. Or down, depending on how you like to be oriented with your tradings. But it's not good for us. But if we can clear the Linebreaker, the Frog might be able to hold back the Herald's End for a couple of turns. Another Cabinet of Souls on Eldrazi. Yep. Alright, it's going to be a Mycospawn. With haste. Alright. Yep, some amount of yikes right there. What are they going to find? Probably just an Eye of Ugin. So if they flood out a little bit more, they can find some more threats. But at this point, it doesn't really matter. Alright, they got a Wasteland to stop us from being able to multi-spell. So they're going to give their Mycospawn haste and +3. And then they're going to send some guys in. And we don't have many good options here. If they attack with everything, then we can get them. Because we can kill the Herald's End, put 3 damage on this, and then they'll die. They'll both die, and we take 4, and they're left with just a Linebreaker. Now, just a Linebreaker is obviously a lot of power, and it's very terrifying for anything they draw. But we get to clear 2 of their creatures off the board if they attack that way. If they attack with just the Mycospawn, we can trade 2 creatures into it, and that's not great. But it's what we have to do at that point. And that leaves us chump blocking the next turn as well. Or actually, no, I suppose we just take the Linebreaker damage and hope to get somewhere. But yeah, we are having a bad time. If we'd have kept the Atraxa early on, obviously we didn't know we were drawing into Frog and stuff. But alright, they've given us the blocks we wanted, I guess. So block like this and this. Our opponent deals us 4 damage, but we take 2 of their creatures out and are left with a line breaker of our own. Okay, that felt like a dubious attack to me. A fatal push. Alright, let's brainstorm. If we put back the Ponder and the Frog, we get to Grief and Fatal Push. That takes our opponent's creature out. That's okay. But things are pretty sketchy over here. Put this back. And the Frog. We know our opponent's card in hand. If we do this Grief, it's purely to get the Fatal Push off on this, which I think we have to do. As sad as that is. Oh look, it's our opponent's card that we knew they had. But this goes into the graveyard and allows us to kill the Linebreaker. We're basically dead to Linebreaker anyway. So let's start swinging. Our opponent is top decking. We are also top decking, but we know the top card of our library. So there's that Secluded Courtyard that we knew about. And now we get to attack with a hasty Frog and draw another card. Boom. 4 damage. Bonus card. Alright, things are starting to come up. Alright for us. We can ponder and try and look for something. We are immediately dead to Linebreaker, but that's a place we've been at for a while. Do I want to ponder here? I think so. It's more or less free. These days is 2, 4, 5, 6. This is not what we want. This is in any order in the shuffle. Entomb. That could be handy for us. Alright, so this will pump itself, I guess. Attack with both creatures. So this is 4 damage, which will put our opponent to 9. And then if we attack them for 4 again, then 5 and they're dead. If we pump this to a 3-power guy, this is 6 damage, and then we can kill them next turn. So I think we are on just pumping the Frog here. I guess we could have kept the Entomb, but no, I think this is the right way to go. Don't make red mana. White mana, okay. Thought Not Seer. Okay. We put our opponent to 1 on our attack next turn, which is not good enough. So we're going to need to find a little bit of extra something from somewhere if we want to try and kill our opponent's turn. A Grief. So this attacks for 4. Do we care if our opponent chump blocks here? I'd prefer if they did. Yep, so we get a card here. A Misty Rainforest. I think this is going to... I guess we could Surveil, but we could always just pump this into our Psychic Frog rather than taking any damage. So plan here is block with Eldrazi Linebreaker, swing through with the Frog. Alright, we got there. Psychic Frog, a very powerful Magic the Gathering card. So last time we played this matchup, we boarded out a bunch of our graveyard stuff because our opponent has access to Leyline of the Void as well as Kozilek's Command. So we binned off like at least all of this stuff. We wanted the Wasteland. We want the Harbinger of the Seas. Card is excellent in this matchup. Consign to Memory, very good here. Murderous Cut is such a weird one here because it's removal, but against Leyline it doesn't do anything. I like the Brazen... Do I like the Brazen Borrower? I can't remember if we brought it in last. I think we did to deal with chalices and things. That leaves us one more card that we're trying to find a home. I think it's just a Force of Negation is what we went for last time. More blue cards for original forces. And it counters the Kozilek's Command all the time. It counters a turn 1 chalice. Alright, I think that's what we're going for. This hand is reasonable. I'll keep this. Our opponent basically only has one real... Oh, I was going to say they only have one real turn 1 drop, and that's usually the... that annoying little guy. The 2-mana guy. Okay, so we just fire this off. No messing around. We have a Consign to Memory for their next spell. Am I pitching this Grief here? I think so. We basically operate on 2 mana and we have 2 mana. 2 Kozilek's Commands. Alright, we'll take one of them. They got Cradle in their build, which is unusual. Okay, so I have Consign to Memory ready to go. It's not going to be a very big... Okay, they got Fleshraker. I will counterspell that. There's Cradle. So now their plan is Kozilek's Command. We need to find... okay, I'll take this. So we could get a Surveil land, or we could just play on basics and be safe against our opponent's Wasteland deck. I think we're probably doing the safe play. And we're just going to sit on this Force of All blue card. I don't want to go shields down and cast this Brainstorm. Do I care about Kozilek's Command for 1? I don't think I do. They probably get a little guy and they draw a card. Yeah, our opponent figures we're not pressuring them so they can wait a bit longer. And that is correct. A Grief. That is something we can work towards if we get some more mana. But we're just going to sit here, being a control player. I don't think I care about them doing a Kozilek's Command for 1. I think I'd rather hit the actual monster that's going to get us. No attack with their 0-1. Not even to send a message. Polluted Delta. So now we can start doing surveil land stuff. We can probably fire off 2 in the end step, potentially. Cavern of Souls. That is a problem. That means we're brainstorming at end step here. If we can find a Wasteland, we can keep this Force of Will stuff. If we don't, then other things need to happen. I don't really want either of these lands. So I think I'd at least keep the Force for the possibility. Actually, if we take one of these lands, we can just grief next turn. And that's okay. Let's crack this. Get Surveil land going. A Daze. That's not what we want right now. That means I'll go and get the other Undercity Sewers here. Animate Dead. I think that is an above average draw. I want to get our swamp for when we get the Harbinger going. Harbinger of the Tides. Could come along at any minute. Let's just have a little look at what our opponent's doing. I'm guessing it's just lands over there, but I could be wrong. A Wastscape Battlemate. So they have an Eye of Ugin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. So they're a little ways off of that doing anything. Linebreaker? Yep, it's the Linebreaker. Powerful spell, as we have seen. Right, they're pumping the Spawn token. I will not block the Spawn. So they didn't want to trade their Linebreaker for our Grief, because they see that we're in the control role. But eventually they can just keep shooting for some scary Eldrazi. We have a weird play available to us here. I think we attack first and see what our opponent wants to do about that. So we could reanimate their Fleshraker and then animate dead their Fleshraker, which gives us some more guys, but it doesn't feel great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we could bounce this and stop them from Eye of Ugining. But we can make them Eye of Ugin for something good, and then we can reanimate the Grief and then animate dead whatever they get. I'll take that. So we can force action with our Brazen Borrower, unless we have to do something else. Alright, this is just going to be getting the Micro Spawn guy, or they're just going to get another Linebreaker. Right, they are tutoring right now with the Eldrazi Spawn available. Is that going to be like a Fleshraker or something? If we ping this back, it doesn't actually help us out. Get us something good that we can then Grief reanimate. They could just get it at the Herald's the End. That's kind of pretty low stakes and is good here. I guess they've got Thought Not Seer available. Probably a pretty strong one. A Glaring Fleshraker. That's not really very exciting, is it? I think we probably want to bounce their Linebreaker and take it here. We're supposed to bounce in response to that trigger. We just gave ourselves up an extra 1 point of damage here. Yeah, it wasn't necessary. So we get back the Grief here. Take out our opponent's Linebreaker. Then we reanimate the Linebreaker, I think. And then I think the Linebreaker can pump itself and attack for 4. I'm a little bit worried about our opponent getting some additional attackers here, so I'm playing it a little bit cautiously on this turn. This emergency Brainstorm isn't really going to come to anything. I suppose we could have fired it off and got a Wasteland. That might have been a bit better than just leaving it in hand like this. But I'd rather know what I'm digging towards. See what our opponent's got going. But yeah, we probably should have fired it off looking for a Wasteland. Or a Harbinger of the Tides before we played our Reanimate line. Yeah, that was a sloppy turn from us there. Definitely should have cast this Brainstorm first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this might be the Myco Spawn kicked. That's pretty strong here. Get some Fleshraker triggers, which is certainly going to whittle down our life total in short order. Wastscape Battlemage. Okay, so they're going to go and try and bounce this Linebreaker, which is good and gives them a very solid turn next turn. They can't play the Linebreaker this turn at least. Yeah, I think we played this previous turn poorly, and that's going to cost us this game. Alright, we can bounce that. They didn't have green mana to blow up our Animate Dead. I don't believe they're going to let us trade into their Fleshraker here. Alright. Brainstorm. Let's try you first. Harbinger of the Seas. So we would have had the really good play if we'd have done that. If we play the Harbinger of the Seas, though, they still get to play the Linebreaker this turn. So have red mana here and colourless from the Eldrazi spawns. We can't kill all their Eldrazi spawns. Yeah, this isn't going very well for us, is it? We really just should have Brainstormed last turn. We could have played this Harbinger of the Seas, shut all this down, and we'd have just been fine. We just played that horribly. If we attack both of these, it doesn't get us anywhere. Maybe it's too late for Harbinger of the Seas. Like, it is a blocker, but they get to play the Linebreaker, and then we just lose. Like, they sacrifice this, tap this, and then we lose. We can't kill this. Also going to die into the Fleshraker. Yeah, I think the time has gone for those cards. We just try and ponder our way out. Brazen Borrower can bounce the guy at the beginning of combat. That maybe keeps us alive for a turn, but they just replay it and drain us out. Yeah, I don't know how we're supposed to win this one. I think we're just done here. Like, we might still have lost if we'd have played the Brainstorm into Harbinger of the Tides, but we'd have been in such a stronger position. Like, we would have been facing down the... I guess we would have been facing down the Linebreaker. Oh no, we would have been facing down the Linebreaker still, right? Okay. So they get a spawn, that drains us. We get the Linebreaker. Yeah, I don't think we can win this one. Let's just go to game 3. Don't want to do anything differently here. I don't think so. I quite like the setup we've got. It seems pretty reasonable to me. I don't think I want to be doing Entomb stuff. Like, we could play more Entombs and more copies of Harbinger of the Seas. That's an interesting line. I think we just want the tools we have here. We played against Eldrazi earlier and it was fine like this, so let's see if we can do it again. If we'd have played better, we might have been alright. We would have still been facing down the Linebreaker though, which would have been... They would have been able to cast the Linebreaker, which then is still big enough to pressure our life total, so I don't know if we actually win that one. But we definitely should have Brainstormed first. Harbinger of the Seas is the sort of thing I want here. I will keep this. We'll need to find a black source, but we've got 2 cantrips to find it, so I believe. Then we play the Ponder in case we find different black cards that we want to fire off into the grief. A Psychic Frog is a very good turn 2 play. So I think we go Ponder on the bottom, then the sea. I'll take the Frog. And we'll try and undo our opponent's hand a little bit here. No Wasteland over there, it's good to know. Double Eldrazi Linebreaker is some stuff right there, isn't it? The Myco Spawn is kind of annoying. Don't care about the Wastegate Battle Mage. I guess we just take one of the Linebreakers. And then we play the Frog on turn 2. And then turn 3 we play the Harbinger of the Seas. And hopefully that's enough to stop our opponent from being able to do much. There is an Eye of Ugin. That is a weird choice, because that doesn't allow them to cast a Linebreaker. Because they need colourless mana, not generic mana. And they can't play the Myco Spawn either. If they just played out the Ancient Tomb or the Cavern, they'd have been able to play a Linebreaker this turn. It's good for us, obviously. We get to Harbinger of the Seas. Okay, just an Eldrazi Temple there. So we've got 6 cards in hand. So they have 1 mystery card. Is that mystery card Kozilek's Command? Because that is the thing that beats what we have going on here. Let's attack first and see if we draw any counter magic to protect our little friend. Another Psychic Frog. So I could just play another Psychic Frog, waste down the Eldrazi Temple and leave them unable to cast spells again. Do I think they've drawn a Kozilek's Command? That would have been a reason to play out the Eye of Ugin, to give you turn 2 potential Thought-Knots here. We could play out another Psychic Frog here, but then our opponent... If we play out the Psychic Frog and Wasteland, our opponent can't play the Linebreaker, unless they have the Kozilek's Command, which will then kill one of our frogs. But maybe they would have killed the frog first, instead of letting it hit them. Alright, I think we're going to go for the high roll of the Harbinger of the Seas here. Alright, it's just game over. Cool. So they might have Dismember in their deck, but they are pretty in trouble over there. A Chalice of the Void. Sure, that doesn't matter. We're just going to pitch these cards to our frog and beat you down very quickly. Oh, that's an excellent draw. Cycle this. Gonna get this Swamp. And we will discard a card. Discard a card. Crash for 5. Another frog. I think the frog is better than the Reanimate there. We could play a Eldrazi Linebreaker out of our opponent's graveyard next turn. No, we can't because of the Chalice. Ignore me. Alright. So this is just food for the frog. Let's crash for a bunch. Draw some cards. Don't need to play them. Let's just keep them in hand. We have some lethal threats with evasion here. And we'll have 3 cards in hand, so either of them can be lethal. Alright, powerful sideboard cards are powerful. I think we definitely misplayed the second game with the Brainstorm. I don't think we still I think we still lose that game because they will have the Linebreaker in play, which is just going to be big enough that it's going to pressure our Harbinger of the Tides and eventually we're going to have to start blocking. But I think we definitely could have played that turn better. But we won the match and we are 4-0 with the best deck in the format. Who'd have thought? Alright, let's go to the trophy round and see if we can nail it down. This hand is kind of interesting. We are relying a lot on this Brainstorm to do some work, but on the draw I think I'll take it. Like, a Psychic Frog with a Daze backup is a pretty powerful place to be. Ponder from our opponent. We could play the Wasteland game. Just reset the turn to try and draw more land. Alright, so now we get to do the best of all worlds. Are we Wastelanding our opponent here? It's hard to say. It is really hard to say. We want to play this out before our opponent has a chance to daze, because we don't want the grief dazed. Alright, I'm going to play out this Wasteland. And we just fire this off straight away. And now we'll have a look at our opponent's hand. Like, if we put this on the stack whilst the Wasteland is in play, then they can just daze if they have a daze. Okay, Atraxa, Entomb, Troll of Khazad-dum. A bunch of stuff here. So they can definitely get monsters into the bin if they want to. But I guess it's not about that. So I suppose we're just taking the Daze. Or do we take the Troll and try and strand our opponent's mana sources? That doesn't feel great. I'm going to take Daze here. Polluted Delta. This means our opponent's probably on a Surveil land at our end step. Or just casting the Entomb. But I don't think you can just play the Entomb out until you've got the reanimation spell ready to go. Alright, Ponder. Love seeing a Ponder here. Absolutely love it. Okay, we wanted more lands. So I think we go Sea, Ponder on top, and the Misty. That way they can't discard the Ponder from our hand. I really want to get this Frog down. Are they just going for the end of turn Entomb here? No, they're going for the Spell land. Alright, that is the correct play, for sure. Unless they have exactly Animate Dead? No. It has to be Reanimate, right? Because they probably don't have another land. They milled off their Force of Will despite having the blue card to go with it. So I think our opponent is just racing towards trying to make a big monster. Right, so we get to draw the Ponder. This does expose us to Wasteland slightly, but we get Frog in play. We know all of our opponent's cards bar one. Alright, we are in with the best creature in Legacy. That's good. I think it's the best creature in Legacy. Grief is pretty good too. They're both pretty far above the curve. Obviously that's for its cost. Like, just having an Atraxa in play is better than having a Psychic Frog in play. Alright, goodbye our land. We've got the Ponder. We can try and dig into another one. Our opponent's sort of floundering over there. We found the land. Let's see if our opponent wants to fight over this Ponder, thinking we don't have. I'm not big into this. I don't mind it. I don't mind having another Psychic Frog. But I think we can do better. Like, we already have the land, so it's fine. Do I want to have access to a Brainstorm, or do I want to jam this Undercity Sewers and get some value? I think we're on the Undercity Sewers here. The Brainstorm isn't really what I want right now. We're doing okay for Brainstorms. Fatal Push is the worst thing our opponent can have for us here. I think we'll just take the 1 and take a card. Alright, we've got our Swamp now, so we're locked into being safe from Wasteland. We can do some Brainstorming next turn and see how we go. This is like the scary turn for us, I think. This is the Entomb Animate Dead turn. Alright. Was not the case. Right, I'm going to Brainstorm here. I don't believe our opponent's got Orcish Bowmasters type stuff. We don't want the Archon of Cruelty here. We don't want all these lands either. Yuck. I suppose we put back these two. We keep the Archon of Cruelty because maybe it pitches to a Grief or something. Let's crack this. Go and get another Underground Sea, I think, here. Wowzers trousers. All the Grief all the time. Okay. Guess we take this Swamp and... Did we play a land this turn? We did. We played a Polluted Delta. Let's have a look. Entomb, Atraxa, Troll of Khazad-dum. I'm not bothered by any of these, really. I guess we take the Entomb. It stops our opponent getting it. So the one mystery card they had was not one that we particularly care about. This Daze has certainly seen better days. So yeah, so we're going to draw some lands. We're going to start pitching those to the Frog, I think. So we draw the land, we cast the Grief next turn. We probably pitch the Undercity Sewers. There's that Flooded Strand we knew about. Because our opponent's just going to hard cast an Atraxa soon. It's unlikely to be a thing they can do, but it's not impossible. Right, we just want this for the body more than the effect, but I'll take the effect, I suppose. If our opponent's got Force, they might force this. Just because it's a body. They've got a Daze. There's no point us dazing this one back. I don't really want to put this Archon into the graveyard, but it also doesn't really matter when our opponent already has Entomb, so any reanimation spell is going to get them. Alright, am I increasing the clock by another one by binning this off? I don't think so. I think the Surveil is worth more to me. A Reanimate. Well, we've got a plan for next turn. We need our opponent to not draw a reanimation spell right now, though. Otherwise, we can just neatly pick ourselves up and put ourselves directly into the bin. Uh-oh. Don't want our opponent casting any spells. We can play a Psychic Frog. I'll allow that. Such a pain. It was the one thing we didn't want to happen. To be fair, they could just Entomb and do this anyway. So it's not like we're stopping. The fact that we discarded this makes a difference. The fact they drew the Reanimate is the problem. Ugh. Alright. Sacrifice our creature. I guess this Daze just not doing anything, is it? They didn't shuffle off the Ponder. But they have a fetch chance, so they can crack that. Right, they're using the... So maybe they wanted 2 cards off the Ponder. Okay, we have to deal with this Archon of Cruelty. We can deal with this Archon of Cruelty with our Brazen Borrower. Can we draw it? No. We've drawn a Griselbrand, which is an interesting one. Let's mill off a card here. Troll of Khazad-dum. That doesn't do anything for us here. Let's pop our graveyard out. There's nothing cool that we can reanimate here. But the plan is we discard Griselbrand, but then can't reanimate it because our opponent's creature is going to hit us with lots and lots of damage. That seems bad for us. We kind of need our opponent to cast Entomb or us to draw the Brazen Borrower. That's how we get out of this one. And we don't have very long to do that. If our opponent has another reanimation spell, they can just Entomb for whatever, although they've probably got both of their big hits ready to go. Goodbye, Griselbrand. I don't believe this Reanimate is going to do anything. But I don't think having a Griselbrand in hand is going to do anything either. And we could draw like an Animate Dead. Not that that's going to really work, but we could like Brainstorm into Reanimate Dead. Right, they would like our Griselbrand. Okay, our opponent drew the right things at the right time there. How do we win this game? I think the secret is that we don't. Sure, that Wasteland doesn't matter. It's not what this game is about anymore. The game is about me picking up my cards and going to the sideboard, I think. Pick Frog as well. So they can just draw a bunch of cards, dump them into the Frog. Alright. We were the ones that had it end badly for us. Okay, so what did we do before? I like the Dark Betrayals. I don't like having the graveyard plan. So we get rid of those in the Entombs. Gets us some removal, some more removal, some graveyard hate, some Orcish Bowmasters. And then we need to trim something else to fit all this in. What were we trimming before? It was a Force of Will, wasn't it? Because it's really bad against scam style hands. Alright. Yeah, wastestanding against these decks just feels awful a lot of the time. Now, when you look at your opponent's hand, they don't have a lot of land, and you go, oh, okay, maybe we can do this. But it does feel awful. Because the deck operates really well on 2 lands, and it has one of each basic, with a multitude of ways to find them, because not only do they have fetches, they have the Troll of Khazad-dum to get their basic swamp as well. This is kind of just a grief hand that doesn't go anywhere. I think we can do better than this. This hand doesn't really go anywhere either. We're sort of all in on Brainstorm being good. But can we realistically mulligan any deeper against another scam deck? And that is the crux of the problem right there. Hate it. I hate it a lot. Let's get this island so we can Brainstorm and hide our cards if our opponent griefs us. I think our opponent is going to win. Although it felt like we were winning for quite a while in the other game. So, a lot of magic to play still. And Orcish Bowmasters. I do like the Bowmasters. But I want to get my Brainstorm down before my opponent gets to Bowmasters. Okay, so we could do the whole grief reanimate grief thing. If we just bin back a couple of lands here. Let's fire this off. Maybe they're going to have a big monster. Alright, what have you got, opponent? Doughty Voidwalker, Force of Will, Tomb, Reanimate, all sorts of stuff. If we take the Brainstorm, they can't Force of Will anyway. And then we can just bring our guy back and take out their Reanimate? Doughty Voidwalker. Then we take the Brainstorm. Can get our delicious basic swamp. A most delicious card. Should I make the grief? Our opponent can Entomb in response, I suppose. So, are we getting the Reanimate out of our opponent's hand, or are we getting the Entomb out of our opponent's hand? Don't think we care about the Doughty Voidwalker right now. The Reanimate is kind of the scariest of those cards. Entomb can put a monster in, but without the reanimation spell it doesn't do anything, and they can certainly reanimate a troll and get us that way. I think we'll take the Reanimate. We can race the Voidwalker, or we can just counterspell it. Alright, opponent's going to get Surveil Land going. It's interesting how the scam opponents I've played against today have kept in their Entomb packages in the mirror. I understand it's big and goes over the top, but I don't know. Maybe I'm the one who's wrong. I haven't played this deck the most. Right, they're going to play the Doughty Voidwalker here. And I think we're going to Daze this one, whilst the Daze still does something. Our opponent's got one mystery card in hand here. This means that we have a Doughty Voidwalker we can potentially reanimate. Right, let's bash for 3. We've got this Orcish Bowmasters ready to go. I don't know if our opponent has the Bowmasters since they've got the Doughty Voidwalkers. It's very hard to fit them all in the deck. But they might not have Faerie Macabres, they might just have like Doughty Voidwalkers instead of that. You can Swamp Cycle your Troll. Play your Underground Sea. Casting a Ponder. Who am I to turn down the value? Get pinged. It's not the Brainstorm I would have hoped for, but I'll take it. So now we've got a clock for 5 a turn. That's a 3-turn clock, and we very quickly remove Reanimate as a viable option. They shuffle their library off that Ponder. Put opponent down to 13 with this other ping. Actually, we've got 6 damage, haven't we? Because of the extra token here. So it could be a 2-turn clock if our opponent cracks effects or anything. I would like to cast my Brainstorm now, while our opponent can't do any shenanigans with Bowmasters with this mana. So we could reanimate the Doughty Voidwalker, and that stops our opponent's scariest lines. Put the Troll back, and Animate Dead here. I'll cycle this Troll, and Underground Sea, play Underground Sea, reanimate the Doughty. That should hopefully deal with the Entomb in our opponent's hand. They could Entomb in response here. They did not Entomb in response. Because they Entomb in response and get like an Archon of Cruelty, and then they can draw the Archon of Cruelty, the reanimation spell, maybe they get there. But the risk of that is that we get to maybe take out our opponent's creature if they don't draw the reanimation spell. But they're kind of dead anyway, so I think the Hail Mary is fine there. Alright, we got a win. Let's see what we're going to do for the final game. I think on the draw, are we supposed to have 1 less Daze and 1 more Force of Will? I don't like Force of Will in this matchup, but I think it's still fine. Right, I'm going to make that slight little change there. I think the boarding out the Entomb stuff is working for us so far. Island Ponder is hard to pass up. Got some redundancy, a little bit of protection. I think this is okay. We're not going to give away any like super scary things that our opponent can reanimate easy. Right, our opponent's just doing Island Ponder. We will join them, the classic. The fact they start with an island means that it's going to be hard for them to cast the Doughty Voidwalker until at least turn 3. They haven't shown us any Lotus Petals yet, which you sometimes see in these builds. Not often, but it's not completely out there. Faerie Macabre is a nice little bit of breathing room to have. Let's ponder. A Fatal Push, a Daze, and... Okay, I think the Daze probably goes on the bottom. Or does the Fatal Push go on the bottom? I think it's a Daze on the bottom, then the Fatal Push, then the Grief. And then, would I like to grief my opponent's hand right now? I think so. I think we get rid of this Troll of Khazad-dum because we already have our swamp available. Dark Betrayal is very strong here. I don't like the Wasteland, but we are kind of covered by that. It just means that casting 3-drop is going to be more difficult. Our hand is pretty slow here. We could just take the Brainstorm and try and cut our opponent's mana out from underneath them because they don't have any black yet. We already have 2 answers for the Frog, so I think that is a reasonable place to be. And if they draw a reanimation spell and try and hit our grief, we can always exile it with the Faerie Macabre. Not an ideal exchange, but it's fine. So there's the Wasteland. Over to us. So we're going to draw a Fatal Push this turn. I don't think I'm going to do anything. I'm going to wait till next turn. The Polluted Delta is our only access to Revolt right now, which might not be relevant. But if our opponent has like another blue source and wants to cast a Borrower, then we might want it. They just want to pressure us down that way. Right, they found a Troll of Khazad-dum. They found their swamp. There is their swamp. So now they're going to get the Psychic Frog in. No. No Psychic Frog. They have 1 mystery card in hand. It's probably a Bowmasters. We can Brainstorm because we have the Daze here. Okay. I like all these cards. It's not a bad place to be. Guess we put back the Underground Sea because our opponent has a Wasteland. Do we need another Daze? I don't think so. So now let's crack this and try get our swamp so that we're just protected from this Wasteland. And try and draw a threat. The Dark Betrayal is definitely annoying. A Misty Rainforest. So this can be a Surveil land. I don't hate that. Let's just pass it over. Going to be a bit of a grindy one this, I imagine. And Entomb. That's fine by me. So they've kept the Entomb package in. A Coffin Purge. Okay. I do love Coffin Purge. It's a good card. Also like Purify the Grave, which is the same thing but in white. Because you can't have this griefed out of your hand. Alright, so there is a Psychic Frog. We know both of the cards in our opponent's hand here. We will just Fatal Push this. Petty Theft is only creatures, non-permanent opponents' controls. They can't save their own frog even if they had the mana available. And Animate Dead. Problem here is the Dark Betrayal that our opponent is holding up. So I think the plan here is to pass it over. The reason we didn't get a Surveil land is our opponent's Wasteland and we might want to cast a 3-drop. Like, we can Faerie Macabre our opponent's Coffin Purge, but any of the creatures we get back just immediately die to the Dark Betrayal. So we need to like try and trade some resources first. But our opponent's still got the Entomb package in, so having this Animate Dead might prove really handy. And they might be a bit cavalier about their Entombs because they're relying on this Coffin Purge, but we can just snuff that out as a thing they get to do and then reanimate like an Atraxa or whatever. So put that in the bin. A reanimate on a Psychic Frog. I think we just use this relatively clean answer here. Get rid of the Psychic Frog and the Coffin Purge. Maybe we're supposed to leverage the removal we have in hand. We're going to Coffin Purge our Grief, sure. Grief is an okay-ish thing to Animate Dead, because at least we get the trigger off of it. Would I rather have a Surveil land or have this mana open? I think I want a Surveil land now. Probably going to Wasteland this. A Wasteland of our very own. That does make our Daze better. Alright. I'm not big into it, but I'll take it. Yep, not a surprise. Because we don't have the Faerie Macabre, I'm being very defensive here. That's kind of our role in this matchup because we boarded out all of our Entomb stuff. I could get a Troll, but that doesn't do anything. I guess we're just passing. Alright, it's over to us. Polluted Delta. Okay, we can get some more Surveil action going. We could Surveil now and try and Animate Dead. That's a reasonable thing to attempt. But I don't think we have to, is the thing. We might, if our opponent plays something that makes us want to react, then we have more information on what we're doing. And as we know, the Animate Dead is unlikely to do very much very long in the face of the Dark Betrayal. Alright, a Psychic Frog. A little frog. It's an innocent frog. Let's go and get the Surveil land. Let's have a little bit of selection here. A Reanimate. I will take that Reanimate. And then I will Dark Betrayal their Psychic Frog. If we reanimate the Psychic Frog, they bounce it, and that's bad for us. So kind of in a little bit of a pickle. We don't have the Grief yet. Oh, maybe we shouldn't have kept this Reanimate. That was a bit of a... so if we reanimate the Psychic Frog, yeah, they bounce it, they replay it, and then we cut it, and then we Animate Dead it, then they Dark Betrayal it, and then that's just everyone's resources gone. So I think we just are back in a weird holding pattern. We could reanimate our own Faerie Macabre and just attack with it. That doesn't feel particularly special. But now our opponent's going to have Brazen Borrower as a threat. Alright, we can just sit back on what we have here. They didn't play the Brazen Borrower as a threat. That's an interesting defensive posture from our opponent. Okay, our own Psychic Frog. This is what we want. Because we can just reanimate this when they kill it. Right, get Dark Betrayed. There it goes. But next turn, we can cast Reanimate on it. And we've got Force of Will and Daze. Ooh, I like the Bowmasters here. Right, let's reanimate our Psychic Frog. Like, if they bounce it, it doesn't matter. It just goes to our hand. They could just play out their Brazen Borrower here. A Fatal Push. Sure. We have another reanimation spell. I think that's fine. We want to see like a Brainstorm or whatever. Otherwise, we're saving this Bowmasters to kill their Borrower. I will play that out. I would like a Psychic Frog, please. We have to pitch a card to get any damage out of it. That's the thing we worry about next turn, if it's still around. Now, they can Petty Theft the Animate Dead. They did not Petty Theft the Animate Dead in response. Interesting. They can bounce the Animate Dead. Kind of ends up the same deal. They're just cycling a Troll for now. This means if they go for a Petty Theft, we can counter it with a Daze. Right, they didn't go for the Petty Theft. They do still have this Petty Theft, right? I didn't miss a Brainstorm for it somewhere. A Psychic Frog. This is a very powerful card. Opponent's got some cards in hand. Am I supposed to just... I think I am supposed to say no to this. And this is the exact reason we said no to this. Because we get 2 bites of trying to stop this. We don't have any more Surveil lands, right? We do not have any more Surveil lands. Opponent's got 1 card in hand. I'm pretty sure it's Petty Theft. Let's Murderous Cut this. What are we getting rid of here? Land. So there is a real problem with what's happening right now. Because if I've kept an accurate review of what our opponent has, and they have this Brazen Borrower, then if we pump this, they immediately bounce the Animate Dead. We don't get a card here. We're just seeing if our opponent would do anything in response. If we had a Daze up then, we could hold the Daze up. We wouldn't have to worry about the Petty Theft, and I wouldn't mind doing that. But as it stands, that's not where we're at. An Animate Dead. Okay. I guess we... I don't really want to discard this Animate Dead. So the reason we're still attacking is so that when we attack and do pump something in, it's the same for our opponent, and they don't know that we're about to start pumping. A Ponder. Or take my Bowmaster goodness here. I was kind of saying it for the Borrower. I think this is still reasonable. It actually gives us some power to work with, which is something we've been missing for a while. Right, we got a little ping going. We have a removal spell for the next black creature they have. Animate Dead on a Troll of Khazad-dum. So now they can't Brazen Borrower our creature. So we can Dark Betrayal this. Get this out of here. Now we can pump our Psychic Frog and actually draw a card. Hallelujah. Okay, I will cast my Brainstorm first. Force of Will, Daze. Okay, these cards are just good, aren't they? It's going to be very hard for us to pitch a card here. I guess we can pitch the Animate Dead and then just put like push and force on top. And then we'll draw the force when the frog connects. Oh, what game. So now we're sitting on this late game Force of Will whilst we're ahead on board drawing extra cards. This is the position we wanted to be in. Getting an Entomb here. I think that's fine. Last time they just got a Coffin Purge, so I don't know how much of their Entomb plan they have. It's just another Coffin Purge. Sure. They're doing that to shuffle, I think. So now I got a Fatal Push that we're drawing. We go to attack, so Petty Theft, we Force of Will it. There is this Petty Theft that we've been playing around this whole game. No. Not today. Right, that's another land that can go into the frog. So Reanimate is becoming a very tricky card for our opponent to use. Land is probably not what they wanted. A Petty Theft. We could shoot our own frog so they don't get the Brazen Borrower. But we could just kill the Brazen Borrower when it comes in anyway. So they have a Coffin Purge, so this Animate Dead is not the most useful. So we go to attacks here. Let's try and Animate Dead their Troll of Khazad-dum here. And just put the lethal threat on the board. They will Coffin Purge this. And then we can reanimate their other troll. Our opponent has one draw step. Otherwise they die to the troll. They've already used 2 Borrowers. And most of these lists tend to run exactly 2 Borrowers. They Surveil. I imagine it's probably going in the bin unless it's a cantrip. Alright, it's a Daze, it's gone in the bin. What's the one card? This is for the trophy. Alright, we got the GGs. So, we won a trophy with the best deck in the format. That just won a challenge. Not challenge, it was a Legacy Showcase qualifier. So, yeah. Good list. Best deck. Not surprised to get a trophy. But we did manage to crunch through the mirror twice. Now, if you watch my channel, you know that I haven't played this deck an awful lot. But we won the mirrors because we boarded out all of our Grave Valley stuff. And that felt like the right thing to do. And it clearly paid off. Like, we did beat the mirrors effectively. Because when Scam originally came around, it was there to sort of just prey upon all these, like, red-black Reanimator decks. So I figured just playing the more Scam side is going to be good enough. So let's talk about this list. So, this deck is too powerful for Legacy, in my opinion. Grief is just an obnoxious play pattern. When you do this on turn 1 and reanimate it, it's just awful. Like, you get to just completely strip your opponent's hand. They don't really get to play Magic. And then you're following up with all the best cards in Legacy. You know, your Force of Wills and your Dazes and all your cantrips to make sure that you have the right stuff flowing. And that is just horrible. But then also, sometimes you just oops, I win with an Entomb plan as well, which is really strong. And then you have Psychic Frog, which is like the best fair creature we've seen for possibly ever. This card is just really good. It seems weird calling it fair because of how unfair it feels. But yeah, this pitches to both of our pitch spells, and which we did in the league. We did pitch it to those spells, and it also just absolutely runs away with the game. So this feels like this deck needs multiple bannings because everything this deck does is really high power level, and it's together in a really neat package. And I think, from my point of view, I think Grief and Psychic Frog need to go. Whether or not other stuff needs to go after that, I don't know. But I think both of these cards are too strong. Like, everyone knows Grief is going at this point. It's, you know, it's a done deal. It's just a case of when. Psychic Frog is a new card, so maybe it will get a little bit more room to breathe in the format. But Dreadhorde Arcanist got banned, and I think this card is better than Dreadhorde Arcanist. It's different. You know, it operates differently, but I think it is better than Dreadhorde Arcanist. And that card got banned relatively sharpish in Legacy. So I think this deck is playing at least 2 cards that are too powerful for the format, and then all the other cards it's playing are the best cards in the format. You know, these cards and these cards. Like, Reanimate is really strong as well. You know, we've got the good removal, we've got the nice catch-all answer, we've got the good mana fixing. It's just, we're playing all the good cards. And if you look at something like MTG Goldfish, when you look at the most played cards in the format, all of them are in this deck. That tells you everything you need to know. It's 40% of the meta for a reason, which is like twice as much as you would expect a normal problem deck in the meta to be. Like 20% in Legacy is a bit of a problem. 40% is a bit of a joke. And I think we demonstrate that today. Like, I'm not an expert playing this deck by any stretch of the imagination. And we crushed it. And, we were playing against good decks. We were playing against other scam decks. But we were also playing against Eldrazi, which is the other big deck in the format. And we played that twice. And we just, smashed our way through them. Deck feels very strong. Oh, we also beat the Dreadnought deck, which I really like as well. What I will say about this deck, as much as it pains me to say it, is it's quite fun. When you're doing the Entomb stuff, not really. You're just putting your big guy into play, and that's not fun. But when you're playing with this half of the deck, it is very fun to play this deck because you have lots of decisions to make. You've got lots of sculpting, lots of little intricate things going on. And the Scam Mirror was quite fun to play, which is at least something, right? If there's going to be a deck that's 40% of the mirror, the mirror may as well have a little bit of back and forth and stuff going on. Nobody really got super wimble slams, so we had proper games of like back and forth. But yeah, this deck is something that's not going to be around for the longest amount of time in Legacy, I don't think. But I think you can ban some cards and this deck is still good in some shape or form. Like, Blue-Black Reanimator has been a deck for pretty much as long as I've been playing Magic the Gathering. Like, back in the day, people were careful studying their, I'm trying to remember, like Achromas once upon a time, people were putting into their graveyard and bringing back. That's the sort of jam we're looking at. And then, creatures have evolved. They got Sphinx of Steelwind and Inkwell Leviathan and all sorts. Then we got Griselbrand. Once upon a time, we thought, oh, no reanimation creature is going to be better than that. And then we got Archon of Cruelty and Atraxa. So, Blue-Black Reanimate is definitely going to be a deck. Blue-Black Scam probably isn't going to be a deck, but like a Blue-Black mid-range deck is definitely going to be a real thing, even if they ban some stuff, because the cards are just still really good, even if you take out the most powerful aspects of it. And, it brings Bowmasters back in the fore, which gets a lot of hate, Bowmasters, but I think it's a reasonable enough card. I think it is better against the blue decks than it is against the non-blue decks. So the non-blue decks can run it as well as the blue decks, but it is better against those blue decks. So it's kind of a weird equalizer. I know the blue decks run it and people go, oh, well, it's just another card for Delver decks or whatever, but it is a card that hurts the other Delver players, but doesn't really hurt a lot of the other decks. Now, that being said, Bowmasters does kind of restrict what 1 toughness creatures can see play a little bit, which is the one downside to this card to me. But enough of my rambling. This is Blue-Black Rescaminator. It is easily the best deck in Legacy, and it definitely needs some bannings. However, I had a great time today. We had some really intricate games, and I hope you enjoyed it. And, the story of the day is sometimes it's okay to be the bad guy, and sometimes it's even good to be the bad guy. And that's how it felt today. Alright. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. It really does help the channel out and doesn't cost you anything, so why not? And drop me a comment. Let me know how much you hate this deck. Alright. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel. A mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbo Depths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles. And lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.